kind of slavery. No, it is what it is. Like internships is probably the most crucial thing. Like
My focus lied solely on
hockey.
Equity value, enterprise value. I would say,
Beyond.
yeah, I would.
Let's start. We have Brandon Avizov, a student of Columbia University, trying to already broke into investment banking, I would say, right? And yeah, just a little bit of pros and cons. Why should you go? Why should you not? And a little bit of sharing experience, I would say. All right, first of all, thank you for doing that. It was spontaneous, and I don't know, just probably glad you agreed on that. And probably like the first question, you have athlete experience, right? I wouldn't say you were
Sure.
ex-athlete, but how, like, what inspired you to switch from like being an athlete, a hockey player, and like at one point, that's it. It's investment banking for me. Like, what was the process? A question
Yeah, of
you
course.
ask yourself.
Well, I don't know if it was strictly, deciding to be an investment banker that
Okay.
led me to be at Columbia. I think what ultimately drove me to be at Columbia was the people here. When I was playing junior,
Mhm.
I knew a few people at the university that I really admired. And so I felt like, for me, hockey doesn't last forever. I want to build. I always had a technical acumen growing up. I really enjoyed solving puzzles, playing chess, stuff like that. And so, the idea of playing hockey as a career path wasn't really for me. I wanted something where I could still work in these high pressure,
Mhm.
Fast paced collaborative environments, but kind of not do that on the ice, right? And
Okay.
instead do that in a financial
like,
world.
all right, the question for the average hockey player, right? Let's say, listen, hockey players, they don't go to school a lot. I'd say they're not a people of science, right? And they, no, it is true. We're talking about average person, right?
Okay.
Average hockey player or athlete, right? You basically like make your living by, I don't know, playing sports, right? And like at some point, you just switch like your focus entirely. What would be like advice for specifically an athlete, right? What an athlete should do in order to break into, I don't know, investment banking or just like high finance position, or maybe even I don't know, medicine, because
Yeah.
it's a tough position.
Sure.
Where you're supposed to like completely like go 180 and start doing something new what you never done before in your life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best way to approach most things in life, and certainly especially when talking about careers, is to lean on the people who you trust a lot,
Mhm.
who are successful.
Okay.
And that's exactly what I did. I leveraged my connections at Columbia. I want to mention one of my good friends, Rashad Nandan, who's currently
Mhm.
working in banking as well, and he changed my life. He was actually the one who introduced me to investment banking, and he helped network me with people who were already in the field. And so I was able to kind of I would ask them to meet for coffee over Zoom or however I can get a hold of them. I watched countless YouTube videos about what banking entailed. I learned about what an investment banker actually does,
Mhm.
and I learned about kind of how to get there. And so I think for people that are considering doing a 180, I would say first things first, find people who are doing what you are considering doing and see if it's something that you want to do.
Makes sense.
I think banking is one of the things. It's notorious for long hours, fast paced,
Exactly.
high pressure.
It's just like from my perspective, you were just assign yourself for like kind of slavery. No, it is what it is. It's like you
Listen,
spending,
yeah, I mean, it's not for everyone. It's not
like
for the faint of heart.
yeah,
that's
you
for sure.
willingly go like to slavery, but that's the point. Like I want the people to know why we should go, why you should
Yeah.
not.
I think it's very interesting for me, at least. I'm going into M&A, so mergers and acquisitions. I'm not doing capital raising or restructuring because I find M&A to be extremely interesting. I'm going to PwC, which has a it's kind of a bulge bracket, but it's kind of a boutique at the same time because the M&A team is so small. So coming in as a junior analyst, you're getting a lot of hands-on experience early on. And so, sure, you're working a lot of hours, but this is something that I've kind of researched a lot. I've talked to many people at PwC and bankers in general who do M&A. I keep up with the M&A markets. I'm following recent transactions, just trying to familiarize myself with what I'm getting into. At the end of the day, I'm young, I'm a student. I don't know a lot. I want to learn more. And so I'm taking the initiative to position myself to succeed. And so with
Okay.
that being said, sure, I might be working a lot of hours, but I don't foresee myself not liking what I do.
Okay, can you elaborate more on the path, your like specific path?
Yeah,
Because like you're at Columbia,
yeah.
right? It's I wouldn't sit up. It's like the path, right? But it is correct path. Like so the difference is there's non-target and target schools, right? And
Sure, yeah.
from a target school, it's like way easier to get there. But uh, what do you think about your specific path, or for instance, for a person who doesn't have an opportunity to go like Ivy League school, right? What he or she do on maybe what they should start learning or like focus on to get into that field.
Absolutely. That's a great question. I think for people that don't go to a target school, and even if you do go to a target school, it is still very challenging to get into investment banking, in my opinion.
Okay.
And so, with that being said, I think the approach should be start early. If banking is something that you're considering, or consulting, or venture
what
capital,
age? What age?
I think I played junior, so I didn't start that early. But ideally, I would have loved to kind of had a better grasp of what I wanted to do at that age.
Mhm.
And so I think, your first semester in college, I think it's very important to acclimate to, your university, maybe join some clubs, stuff like that. But I think by the second semester, your freshman year, just to put yourself in the best position possible, start networking, going on LinkedIn, reaching out to alumni. If you're in a club, try to join a banking club on campus. Those have been great. I'm very fortunate enough to be in one at Columbia. That's been really instrumental in my development. Also, as a hockey player at Columbia, I was able to leverage the connections to the hockey team. As I mentioned, Rashab is a banker. He's not the only one. There's many people very similar to him that are also in banking.
Okay.
And I think, hypothetically, I did not get to start that early. I was actually at Stony Brook, as you recall, we
Yep.
were teammates. And so I didn't get to start until my sophomore year. So I would say for somebody that's going into college, I think your second semester, you really want to gear up, figure out if banking is what you want to do. Start, going on LinkedIn or talking to your coach or joining a club, figure out who's in banking, talk to them. And then most importantly, if that's something you want to do, start to get a good understanding of what the technicals are. Because a large portion of the interviews are technical questions. And so you want to be really familiarized with those.
All right, let's touch on the base of Columbia actually. You have experience of going to target and non-target schools, right? Could you explain me maybe some differences or like how Columbia, like I would say, accept the name, helps you to excel your skills? I would say
Yeah,
excel
absolutely.
your skills, excel your understanding, and maybe excel the opportunity to get to this higher position.
Yeah. Well, I want to first start off by saying I think I'm very fortunate enough to have been at Stony Brook and now at Columbia, and I learned a lot being at both places. I met some really great people, and I think what I don't really have too many discrepancies. Obviously, like there are some, but nothing too notable. I think the courseworks are challenging in both universities. I think both schools are great. I think taking some economics classes at Columbia and some math classes kind of taught me, not necessarily, obviously the math is important, but I think it really taught me how to think better, how to think in terms of more.
Maybe think like critically, more clear.
Yeah, I think way more critically, analytically, and kind of figure out, if how to derive certain
Okay.
answers based off of a situation that might not be very clear. And I think like it definitely taught me how to be a better thinker, which I think is really an invaluable skill.
Okay, but in terms of, I would say, the atmosphere.
Brook, for me personally,
Okay.
it was very much hockey oriented, as you remember,
Exactly.
right?
Same for me.
It was 5-6 days a week, on the ice, with including practices and games.
Exactly.
That one off day, it's not really an off day. You're still you're in the gym, you're at home stretching, you're going for a run or whatever it may be. I was at Stony Brook for 2 semesters, and I could say that my focus lied solely on hockey.
Exactly.
That was it.
Same thing basically.
Now that I'm at Columbia, it's absolutely not the case. I think, like you said, I surround myself with a lot of people who are smarter than me. I'm very fortunate, and a lot of bankers. And so it was no surprise that I kind of want to go into banking. It's a career that I had kind of the most exposure to just through my peers at Columbia, both on campus and off campus.
All right.
And so my whole kind of mindset at Columbia is kind of take care of my schoolwork, right? When I was recruiting for internships and stuff like that, make sure I'm studying a lot for those as well. It was very
All right.
study oriented.
All right, let's touch base on internships. Like, how do you think? What's the percentage of your success depends on internship when you're trying to get into investment banking? Because it's a big topic.
Yeah,
I haven't landed any like good internships at my time. Like we said, like I was hockey oriented. I was like, all right, it's another season. I have to be prepared. Like
exactly.
I'm
Yep.
a starter. And school was like, all right, it's the second thing. Like we'll figure out after I graduate. But that's the thing. I hadn't have any internships. But from your perspective, what's the how does it affect your success after graduation? These internships.
Yeah, I
And
think
most importantly, what you learned there, I would say, like, can you like give me
Yeah,
examples?
of course.
Specifically?
Yeah. So this past summer, I was on a growth equity team at a small PE firm,
Uh-huh.
and I think that was really important for me because I kind of learned a lot through osmosis, meaning that I was surrounded by so much financial jargon, and I kind of just picked up the lingo along the way. For instance, when we were talking about valuation and enterprise value, sure, I kind of knew about it through the technical study, but I never really had a chance to apply it in an actual setting. So we were doing, myself and another, my group was assigned to create marketing materials for a private company. And this we wanted to compare how the company had increased in valuations as these seed stages progressed. And so that was the first time where I kind of applied my technical knowledge
Okay.
into an internship setting. And I think the most important thing that my internship taught me was kind of apart from learning and more the harder skills and the technical skills were the soft skills, right? It's how do you interact with a community where pretty much everyone in the office is older than you. There's a few interns, but they're also students, right? And how do you gain the most knowledge from the people who are already working in finance? So I think for me, like, it was one of those things where I had a ton of questions going into the internship and throughout the internship, and for like I constantly would, think to myself, okay, how can I, you know, leverage everyone I know here and kind of pick everyone's brain to get the most out of the internship, because it was only 10 weeks. It's not that much time in the grand scheme of things. And so I think, like, going into this internship, God willing, this summer in banking, I think I have a really good understanding and approach to how to interact with my peers
Okay.
to succeed.
All right. Now, the recruiting process, right? Like internships is probably the most crucial thing. Like
It could be
after graduation, because I feel like if you didn't go to any good internships, didn't learn anything good, it's getting harder and harder, right? Especially after graduation, like I said, right? Everyone has a different path, but if you're young, if you're like 18, 19, or whatever, your first year at school, I think personally, sometimes young people are like pretty responsible, especially in that age, and then at one point it clicks and like, all right, I just missed my opportunity, I missed my window, and like Brandon said, it just has to be on time. How does it feel like? I don't know if people are gonna watch like from outside of New York or country or wherever. How does it feel to be a student in New York, or right in like middle of the, I would say, financial world, and go to, yeah, Colombia? Like, do you like you're living here? How do you like the?
I can't say anything but positive things. My experience has been amazing here. I think everything can be attributed to the people at Columbia. I'm very fortunate to be in a few social groups. Hockey is a huge part of that. And I think I surround myself with people that are very ambitious, very driven, very smart. And I'm very, very fortunate to be here. I think academically, the school's definitely challenging.
Mhm.
And so that's a huge part of my routine, is to make sure I'm putting in a lot of time in the library or at home studying. But also,
Do you realize like actually where you are right now? Because like I have experience. Like I'm from a pretty small town in the middle of nowhere. My parents, due to my parents, and I'm thankful for that. I'm like here right now, and looking back in the past, like if we wouldn't do what we did, my life would be I would say miserable, but still, it's like you're in a small town in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, of
Like
course.
you have pretty I would say short vision of your life, of what you can do or where you should go, or right, or what you should do with your life, like overall. Like, yeah, it's New York, wherever. It's like I got used to that. Nothing
Yeah,
special.
I think about it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm someone who reflects a lot about kind of how I got to where I am and what I want to continue to keep
Hmm.
doing. And I think reflecting and always thinking is the key to growing as a person in all aspects of your life. And so I always think about my journey from as a child, the sacrifices my parents made, how much
Hmm.
they invested in me and my sister as well. And I just, I could talk for hours, truthfully, about like there's just countless amount of people to thank. So I think just being here right now, talking with you, being in the city, being a student at Columbia, um, being healthy and happy. It's
No,
just
exactly.
I'm just
Being healthy.
it's just such a blessing, and I think something to describe that feeling is there's no word for it. It's a very powerful feeling, and you know, going back to what you said, right? Like it's beautiful in the city. I love it, and
Exactly. Look at the this
yeah,
sunset.
beautiful
Yeah.
sunset. We're healthy. We're able to play some hockey tonight.
All right, let's continue. For the people who are just not familiar with investment banking, just explain how competitive it is, like in a few sentences.
It's very competitive. A lot of people want the position. Students want the position rather, and there's only a limited amount of spots.
Don't you think, like, what's the, let's say in percentage term, what does drive you? Money you can earn there, or the ability to excel and like thrive as a person?
I would say I would
Just
say
be honest.
yeah, I would say 80-20, 70-30 towards the actual work that I'll be doing. I think the work itself is meaningful,
Hmm.
and obviously, the money aspect is also a huge part of it. I don't come from a lot of money, and so I want to make sure that if I am working in a career, that I am able to take care
Hmm.
of myself, and my family. But I think really, like, I don't really know the percentages. Actually, I take that back, because the more I think about it, like, the more I think that the career for me is great for the reasons I mentioned earlier, and obviously, um, you can take care of yourself and your family comfortably. So it really is just
Hmm.
such a, and that goes back to the demand for it.
Exactly. All right, next question. Could you explain your studying and learning strategy for specific investment banking? What topics people should start with, right? Should go over with, and I would say maybe resources, but it's not necessary. But what strategy actually help you to be at the point where you're right now?
Yeah, I think first things first, start off with accounting. Get really familiarized with the three statements, how they
Mhm.
intersect, line items, what happens if X change happens, how does that affect the three statements, and just getting really familiarized with the financial statements. That's the most important thing, because from that you can build a foundation, and a really solid foundation,
Mhm.
to get into equity value, enterprise value. You can get into some of the valuation
But by the way,
methods.
what's the like I would say maybe division? You said M&A, but
Yeah, yeah.
what are you like looking for in the future? Like maybe like any specific division or
Yeah, yeah. So I'm really interested right now in TMT, which is technology, media, and
Mhm.
telecoms, and consumer products.
Okay, nice. So let's continue for the about learning stuff, right? You said accounting first, then like what parts like you consider the most important, like DCF or like
Yeah.
M&A modeling or
Yeah.
maybe LBO?
So I think-
obviously it depends on like where you're going.
Yeah, I think
but-
it also depends on where you are in terms of your academic career, how old you are, if you're a freshman or a sophomore. For example, if you're applying for a sophomore summer investment banking internship, you probably don't need to do a merger model or a paper LBO. You probably need to get really familiarized with basic accounting, valuation, and it's kind of the intricacies within that valuation, right? So you need to know kind of what are the different valuation methods, how are they different, be able to walk an interviewer through it, and kind of learn the nuances of. There is a lot to banking. Ultimately, I think someone once told me this recently, but you'll probably spend anywhere from 150 to 200 hours in terms of like mastering the technicals, right? So if you do put the time in, and I actually think that as you start to understand it, it gets kind of it actually gets easier to go through the content and the material.
Yeah.
I think the hardest part, honestly, is to start. So if you're considering, if anybody's
yeah.
considering, I think
I-
starting is the.
I believe
most
that
important thing.
when like I kind of started like slowly dive into it, it was like I was just looking at it and I'm so confused. What should I do? What should I look at?
Yeah.
All this new info, you have to soak it in, and you're like, God damn. All right, let's see how he actually proficient in that. Walk me through DCF.
Okay, so the first step part of the DCF is to project out your future free cash flow for the next 5 to 10 years
All right.
until the business reaches maturity or some sort of steady state, typically GDP level growth. The next step is to calculate your terminal value using the perpetuity growth method or the exit multiple method. We'll refer to that as stage 2. The next step would be to discount your terminal value by the weighted average cost of capital to arrive at enterprise value. Once you arrive at enterprise value, you want to subtract debt and add cash to arrive at equity value. And then for a public company, if you want to calculate the price per share, you take your equity value and divide that by the number of shares to get the price per share. But I haven't done this in a while, and I had a few midterms this week, so
It's
if
fine.
I'm wrong, I'll do it next time.
I gotta miss it. I was like thinking, was it perpetuity method or terminal?
So to calculate terminal value, there's two methods that you can use. You can either use the perpetuity growth method
now,
or the Gordon growth.
From the
Which is the Gordon growth?
unleveraged free cash flow, we just went to perpetuity. Let's go to the terminal. Like, tell me, which would you prefer?
I think the most common practice to calculate terminal value is the exit multiple method because it's just a lot easier to use.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, like that was.
You better cut that because if I got that wrong, it's a bad.
All right. Yeah, that was Brandon Avazov, student of Columbia. Look there. You can look there. And yeah, guys, try to be proactive, right? Learn new stuff. And I think you should kind of love it if you want to get into that because it's a pretty challenging thing and people don't have a lot of time, right? Because like Brandon said, pretty competitive field. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like this video, and I guess we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Appreciate it. Thank you.